What's happening, everybody? Well, Ana Kasparian and those big sillies at the Young Turks are at it again. Ana Kasparian's growing frustration with the political left has been a hot topic in recent news. In today's video, we dive into another significant moment that contributed to her public discontent. Ana Kasparian recently delivered a fiery rant aimed at the left following an episode of The View that featured an interview with New York's governor. What set Ana Kasparian off was a discussion on bail reform, specifically a shocking murder case highlighted by the wonderful ladies of The View. This decision, in her view, put law-abiding citizens in danger. Ana Kasparian's outrage reflects mounting concerns over the consequences of such reforms, which she believes are poorly executed and harmful to public safety. Let's take a look at the video.
Sounds insane to me too. New York Governor Kathy Hochul was grilled about crime during her appearance on The View, and I loved seeing it, especially when she was asked to defend her intensely stupid idea of deploying hundreds of National Guard troops into the subway system to keep people safe. Now, Hochul announced that she would be deploying 750 members of the National Guard and 250 state troopers and police officers in order to basically do random bag checks of people riding the subway. It's unsustainable, it's expensive, and it did nothing to keep New Yorkers safe. In fact, there was a shooting in the subway system just last week after she had already deployed the National Guard troops. Now, with that in mind, Behar weighs in with an interesting point that we'll get back to in just a second, mostly about certain tweaks that need to be made on the criminal justice reform that's been passed in New York, but more importantly, what those flaws have led to. So with that in mind, let's watch some more of their conversation.
You deployed hundreds of state police and National Guard troops into the subway system. But since the pandemic, you have done a wonderful job. Overall crime is down in the city.
Yes, it is.
So my question to you is why now? Why deploy into the subway? And how do you respond to some of your fellow Democrats calling the move theatrics that play into Republican narratives that blue cities are poorly run war zones?
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. My job is to keep people safe. I have to keep, any way I can, I'm going to keep New Yorkers safe. And I'll tell you who does show appreciation for the people out there on the streets. I've been walking the streets. I walk into business. People are just saying, thank you for taking such strong action. Now, the subways have been safer, but we had a spike recently.
Yes.
A 45% increase in subway crimes. Now, these are high-profile crimes.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Yeah. Because the CEO of the MTA says that 1% of subway suspects are responsible for more than 20% of the crime because of New York's bail reform laws, which allows them to go back out there and commit more crimes.
Joy Behar is 1,000% right. And rather than tweaking the bail reform in order to do something about a tiny group of people that's causing all this chaos on the subway system, Kathy Hochul has decided to instead basically use up all these resources to do something that's ineffective and makes people uncomfortable, which was the deployment of National Guard troops. And just to give you some more information on what Behar was referencing there, MTA CEO Jono Lieber.
Hey, if you like videos like this one, like, subscribe, and blah, 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 blah. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Said 38 people were arrested for crimes against transit employees last year, and those suspects had over 600 prior arrests. Citing NYPD data, Lieber said 1% of subway suspects were responsible for well over 20% of the crime. There's also been some studies that have more data about this. For instance, the elimination of money bail increased recidivism for people charged with nonviolent felonies, with recent criminal history, and with a recent violent felony arrest. And while it decreased recidivism for people charged with misdemeanors and people with no recent criminal history. So there was a noted difference in how bail reform worked when it comes to recidivism. And by the way, this is a study that was done by John Jay College, their Data Collaborative for Justice, and keep in mind, this is not some right-wing organization. These are the very people who have been pushing for criminal justice reform. And so they're studying what the impact of bail reform in New York has been. And they found that it has increased recidivism for certain people. The reduced use of bail for legally eligible cases tended to increase recidivism among people charged with violent felonies and people with a recent arrest. The starkest and most consistent recidivism increases across both research designs were among people with a recent prior violent felony arrest and among people currently charged with violent felonies who had a recent criminal history. And so the same study, by the way, found that 67% of defendants who had a recent prior felony arrest in the past year and then were released with no cash bail were rearrested within 2 years of their arraignment. Almost half, 49%, were rearrested for a felony. And I should note again that this is data that's been collected by a group of people who absolutely love the bail reform and love the criminal justice reform. It's just that they're doing their due diligence in keeping track of how it's actually played out for New Yorkers.
Historically, I haven't been able to stand Ana Kasparian's rant, but it seems to be more common recently, like this case, that her frustration is entirely justified. It seems like she's finally coming to grips with the fact that many of the far-left policies she's long supported are actually putting Americans in danger. I don't know what took her so long, but take this issue, for example, bail reform, right? The left's idealistic view that no bail equals justice, it's ridiculous. So many times it results in a revolving door of criminals allowing dangerous offenders back onto the streets. Republicans have been warning about this for years, pointing out that a small percentage of offenders are responsible for a large amount of the crime. Yet the left continues to ignore these warnings, and now we're seeing the consequences. But Anna's really close to detonation here, and I don't want to make you wait any longer for that, so let's get back to the video.
So there's three, I think, easy fixes here, but it's so frustrating how slow and irrational our politics and our government is. Okay, so number one, in New York, and this needs to be fixed immediately, and this is not about any reform that happened recently. The judges cannot take the violence of the crime into account. They can only take into account whether the person is going to flee or not. Well, that makes no sense. So, okay, well, I don't think that serial killer is going to flee. He really likes, Rochester. Okay, so he's gonna stay put, so I'm gonna let him go back home. What? So in New York law, there's to be fair, serial killers probably is an exception actually, because there's only a couple of super extreme crimes where they could take that into account. But other than that, you commit a very violent crime and the judge is not allowed to consider it when he's looking at whether to give you bail or not.
Can I give you an example? Yeah. Actually, it's an extreme example that Joy Behar confronted Governor Hochul about, and it's in this next clip. Let's watch that real quick and I'll fill in the blanks.
The CEO of the MTA says that 1% of subway suspects are responsible for more than 20% of the crime because of New York's bail reform laws, which allows them to go back out there and commit more crimes. But there was just a crime on Long Island where body parts were found all over Long Island. They had 4 suspects. They let them go. And now they're out there still. So what is the deal here? It sounds insane to me.
Though the crime that was brought was not what was bail eligible. Yes, murder is. Yes, conspiracy to commit murder is. Yes, assault is bail eligible. All those are. I know that the DA is working really hard with the Suffolk County Police Department to build the case they need to bring the charges that are necessary. The charges he brought, he did not have enough evidence at time to hold them.
So you can't hold them?
Not on the charges he brought. But those are low-level charges. They really weren't. And we can work to make those bail eligible in the next session.
Dismembering a corpse and hiding a corpse after dismembering it, not bail eligible, not a serious crime. I'm not even kidding, guys. Like when Joy Behar outlined that case, I was like, she's crazy. This isn't a thing. This isn't real. This isn't real. So I looked it up. It's real, guys. It's real. Listen, if being on the left means supporting this, then I'm not on the left, and I'm okay with that. So let me give you the details of the case.
It doesn't mean that.
Okay, I don't know. Let me give you the details.
On the left. We're all on the left. We don't want people dismembering folks getting released. Only a couple of lunatic.
Some do.
I know. What I was in the middle of saying is only a couple of lunatic activists are like, yeah, we're pro dismemberment guys being let go. Okay, whatever.
These
You
poor
don't represent the left at all.
Dismembered bodies. It's so unfair to put them in prison. Okay, let me give you the details of the actual case, okay? So 4 people were arrested in New York after body parts were found in Long Island. Okay, dismembered body parts. The victims were, 2 people from Yonkers, older individuals. Suffolk County Police say 44-year-old Stephen Brown, 38-year-old Jeffrey Mackey, 40-year-old Amanda Wallace, and 33-year-old Alexis Neves were charged with concealment of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and hindering prosecution. They have not been charged with murder. Prosecutors told a judge there was so much blood in pipes, sink, shower, and toilet of the Railroad Avenue home in Amityville where the suspects were arrested that it was deemed uninhabitable. Police said they confiscated meat cleavers, butcher knives, flesh, and body parts. Attorneys for Brown and Mackey admitted that their clients lived in that home where the body parts and all that blood was found, but denied chopping up the 59-year-old woman and 53-year-old man whose last known address was in Yonkers. Wallace also lived with Brown and Mackey in Amityville. Police said that Knives is homeless. Okay, all 4 pleaded not guilty. The judge released them without bail. They were fitted with GPS monitoring and must report in-person probation and surrender their passports.
I don't care about their passports.
Dude, guys, like what? Okay, so did further research because I just couldn't believe it. Here's more. With 2019 state reforms, mutilation and disposal of murdered corpses are among crimes that are no longer bail eligible. The DA said the 4 went to barbaric lengths to cover the crime.
So guys, I'll keep my comments short here because Mount Kasparian's about to erupt, but I gotta make a couple comments. So first of all, this is more evidence that anything Cenk says you can disregard, because he says we're on the left, Joy Behar's on the left. No, they're not. They're on the extreme left, and they're the ones who stump for policies like these that cause all these problems, but they'll never take any responsibility. So this case that Ann is covering is a perfect illustration of how progressive policies, however well-intended, tend to create slippery slopes. These policies often stem from trying to correct minor flaws in otherwise functional systems. For example, the bail system historically worked as follows. Commit a crime, get arrested, go before a judge, bail is set, and you either pay it or await trial. Progressives, however, focus on cases where non-violent offenders, often from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, can't afford bail. So instead of fine-tuning the system to address those specific cases, they overhaul it completely, resulting in dangerous criminals being released without consequences. And it's not just bail reform, it's a part of a larger pattern. Police reform, defunding movements, and laws like California's $900 theft threshold, which has contributed to the exodus of businesses like Walmart, McDonald's, 7-Eleven from various cities, show how these policies have massive negative consequences. When criminals learn that they won't face serious repercussions for their actions, what are they going to do? They're emboldened. They'll reoffend, and they'll continue to put the public at risk. Anyway, I told you I wouldn't take long. Watch this relatively justified blow up here.
What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing, Cenk? What are we doing? What are we doing? Someone tell me, what the F are we doing?
Yeah, look, no one signed up for this. I don't know how the hell any of these laws passed. I went to every progressive conference there was over the last 20 years. I never heard a single person saying, why don't we let the actual criminals go? Hey, if someone butchers someone and chops them up into little pieces, let's do the kind of criminal justice reform where they would be able to walk out free.
Yeah, come at me right now and tell me I'm the bad guy, because I want these people who dismembered corpses and tried to conceal the evidence in prison. Come at me and tell me I'm the bad guy. Come at me.
Look, guys.
Insane. You guys are insane. Anyone who thinks this is okay is insane. And everyone else in New York has to suffer the consequences of this with random bag checks at the subway by National Guard troops.
At a time where we have the right wing, which has lost its mind, you're taking good people that would normally be on the left and driving them to the right wing.
Damn
with
right
this
they are.
madness.
I thought this was a perfect place to stop the video because did you hear what Anna said at the very end there? Damn right they are, when Cenk was going on about pushing people to the right wing. And now it's just funny that she's one of those people. But as we wrap up this video, I want to point out that deploying the National Guard to lawless cities that she mentioned earlier to fight crime, rioting, looting, and to protect the public has been proposed by Donald Trump on the campaign trail. While Anna and Cenk and the majority of the left may view these measures as extreme, it's hard to deny that much of the chaos we see in these cities is a direct result of Democrat-led policies, the same ones Anna's historically supported. So this extreme response is a result of extreme situations created by the left. Critics hyperbolize his suggestion and act like he's enacting martial law like a dictator, despite the fact that these would be temporary measures to restore public safety in these areas so they have an opportunity to rebuild and come back better than ever. If the left and progressives would stop their intense reactions to relatively small problems, none of this shit would be necessary. They want to appear as the good guys protecting those that have the least in our society, but they never take responsibility for the horrific outcomes that result from their ideas time and time again. This is embarrassing. I'm getting too worked up. But the question we all need to be asking is, why does the left prioritize the rights of criminals over law-abiding citizens? Shouldn't we be focused on protecting the people who follow the rules rather than those who repeatedly break them? And I always want to reiterate on this channel, those are just my thoughts. But if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I'm always willing to learn and change my mind. Anyway, that's it for today's show. If you like videos of leftist policies and leftist lunatics getting owned, then click on one of the two videos that's going to pop up on the screen here or has already popped up. We really appreciate you joining us today. We'll see you on the next one.